Hello and welcome to Ada Lovelace Day in Bloomington. My name is Kate Galvin. I am the Artistic Director of Cardinal Stage. Thank you so much for being here. Sorry for the delay in getting started. We are using brand new technology, which we're very excited about and still learning. Cardinal Stage is thrilled to co-sponsor this celebration with our friends from The Mill. I think this is going to be a great panel this afternoon, and we are happy to be here to honor the spirit of Ada Lovelace. For those of you who don't know who Ada was, she was a groundbreaking mathematician who lived in the first half of the 19th century. She was the only legitimate child of the infamous poet Lord Byron, and her mother, Annabella, tried her best to prevent Ada from developing Byron's artistic temperament by having her tutored in math and science from a young age. At 18, Ada was introduced to the prominent mathematician and inventor Charles Babbage. They became lifelong friends, and together they worked on his analytical engine, which was an early mechanical computer. Ada was his colleague and his confidant, and she wrote the very first algorithm ever published, leading her to be considered the world's first computer programmer. Despite her mother's machinations, Ada did have her father's artistic spirit. She not only saw the mathematical possibilities in the analytical engine, but she saw the artistic ones as well. Her vision for how the engine might be able to compose music, substituting numbers for notes, was visionary and made her an extraordinary innovator, a woman well ahead of her time. We have all become increasingly reliant on technology since the onset of the pandemic. With stages dark all over the country, theaters and theater artists are moving their work online and experimenting with new ways of storytelling. At Cardinal, we're calling this our season of artistic adventure. Our newest adventure is a walkabout radio play series that is an innovative theatrical experience made possible through technology. The plays are set in Bloomington and written by local playwrights. The whole series was recorded here, edited and designed by a collaborator currently camped out in Hawaii, and made available to patrons anywhere and everywhere through our website. Shakespeare famously said, "All the world's a stage," and we have taken that to a new level. Our Walkabout Radio Play series is an experience that marries the immediacy of the environment around us with the technological sophistication of a well-produced podcast. It's an innovative new way to tell a story, and one that I think Ada would be proud of. Here in Bloomington, we have a community that celebrates both technological advances and artistic achievement. And today, we are joining communities all across the globe to honor Ada and the women who uphold her legacy. Our host for the panel is Katy Börner, last year's winner of our Ada Lovelace Pioneers in STEAM Award. Katy does amazing things with data visualization, and you'll hear a little bit more about that shortly. She also ran a team of volunteers who assembled the beautiful silver fascinators that you'll see us wearing today. They were designed by Philip Beasley to echo his living sculpture Amatria, which you can see in the atrium at Luddy Hall on IU's beautiful campus. If you are coveting one of these fascinators for yourself, you can purchase one by clicking on the button below. They are priced at $15, and all proceeds benefit Cardinal Stage. Now, a little housekeeping before we kick off the panel discussion. If you have questions for our guests, please enter them below where you see the Ask a Question button. You can also vote on questions that you'd like to see answered that other people have asked, and we'll do our best to get to all those questions after the moderated portion of our panel has wrapped up. Also, please feel free to use the chat, say hello, cheer our guests on, or share any resources that are relevant to the discussion. That is everything from me. And now, without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to Katy to welcome our guests.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce the esteemed power woman on today's Ada Lovelace panel. I was asked to briefly introduce myself. I'm a professor of engineering and information science at Indiana University and the curator of the Mapping Science exhibit. Several of the maps are currently on display at the Mill, and we would have loved to have you all there in person, but that's not possible right now. Liesl Record, however, co-curator of the exhibit, will give a brief talk later today on the exhibit and the interactive data visualizations. I think all of that will happen at 5 o'clock today. We were all hoping to celebrate this very, very special Ada Lovelace Day in person, like last year, but unfortunately, this is not possible during pandemic times. Which brings me to the first poll of today, and I wonder if we can do this. How many of you did attend the Ada Lovelace Day at the Mill in 2019? So let's see if we can have a poll here where you can say yes or no. Yes, I attended last year, Ada Lovelace Day or not. Is this possible?
It's happening right now. Katy, I prompted you to toggle your video back on. Did you get that request? There we go.
Wonderful. Thank you for doing that. So we have 10 yes votes and 10 no votes. Are there any other which would like to reveal what they did last year around this time? 13 no. So welcome to this very virtual format this year. Also, I wanted to see how many of you are currently physically in Bloomington right now. So there's another poll. Again, there's a yes, no, simple answer. How many are you are currently in Bloomington? Because it does have advantages to do this virtually. We can have many more join. So I see 21 yes, physically in Bloomington right now, and 6 no. Thanks so much for helping us understand who is in the audience. But now, introductions of our esteemed panelists in alphabetical order. Our first panelist is Laurie Burns McRobbie, IU's First Lady. As many of you know, Laurie is very active ambassador for Indiana University and its extensive alumni community. Her work has a strong focus on philanthropy and the growing influence of women. She is the founder of the Women's Philanthropy Leadership Council at the Indiana University Foundation and serves as its honorary chair. Laurie came to her new role from a long career in information technology for research and education at the University of Michigan and also at Internet 2. And she holds an adjunct faculty position at IU's Luddy School of Informatics, Computing and Engineering. I asked each panelist to share a fun fact with us, and Laurie shared that she has a Ruth Bader Ginsburg action figure on her shelf above her computer monitor, where she can keep an eye on her. So welcome, Laurie.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Next up is Bryony Gomez-Palacio. Bryony was born and raised in Mexico City, and she is the co-founder of UnderConsideration, which is a graphic design firm generating its own projects, initiatives, and context while taking on limited client work. You might like to check out this site, and maybe somebody can even put the link into the chat, because it's actually a quite amazing site, very creative and very, very rich and innovative content. So I hope you all get a chance to check it out. Over the last 2 decades, Bryony, in close partnership with her husband and partner, Armin Witt, Bryony has managed the behind the scenes of various blogs and design sites. She has published 5 books. She's an organizer of the Brand New Conference, another really neat, innovative 2-day event that I hope you get to check out. And she's also organizing First Round, a 1-day showcase of original presentations made to clients showing initial design explorations for logos, identity, and branding projects. As an active citizen of the Bloomington community, Bryony is a chair to the Bloomington Arts Commission, a chair to the Cardinal Stage, Red Feather Bash annual event, and also a board member for the Dimensions Mill. Also, another fun fact on Bryony. When she was a young kid, she was homeschooled in a very remote village in the mountains of Mexico, basically growing up without electricity or any formal roads. And during recess, she spent a lot of time on top of horses for hours on end. Please welcome Bryony.
Thank you.
Next up is Nichelle Witney. Nichelle is the founder of the Guarden LLC, a place where things can grow. The Guardian offers tailored diversity education experiences for institutions, agencies, and organizations of all sizes. Nichelle also serves as a faculty champion for Black Women in Tech, a student alliance group within the Center of Excellence for Women in Tech at IU Bloomington. She is a senior assistant director for diversity recruitment and outreach for IU. She also manages Girls Coding Week for Monroe County. In her spare time, and yes, there's a theme, all these busy women manage to actually have spare time, you can find Nichelle serving as Women's Commissioner for Monroe County, where she coordinates efforts to advance the quality of life for women identifying citizens. She addresses policy and legislature as it impacts women identifying citizens and works with local and national organizations to conduct research on the lived experiences of underrepresented people in the county. A fun fact, Nichelle loves chocolate cake so much that she has scheduled stay on the calendar for when she will have alone time with chocolate cake and vanilla ice cream. She calls it self-care. And maybe I think we all need self-care because we have to love ourselves before we can love everybody else. So maybe that gets inspirations to all of you. Please welcome Nichelle.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Last but not least is Teri Willey. Teri returned to Indiana in 2018 to join IU as an executive director of IU Ventures and to launch and manage the new Indiana Philanthropic Venture Fund. Teri is a member of the IU Ventures Board and Investment Committee. She is a member of the Dimensions Mill Velocities Investment Committee. She's a director of the Ventures Club of Indiana, a director of portfolio companies. Several are listed in her biography on the website. She's an advisor to OnCode Institute in the Netherlands, so quite global, and the Frankel Innovation Initiative at the University of Michigan. She is also engaging in technology innovation partnerships at the Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory and an investing member of the Dimension Mill Flywheel Fund and the Portfolio Rising American Fund. Wow. Again, this is an amazing set of power women we have here. And one more fun fact about Teri. She responded when I asked her about the fun facts that she has no respect for authority, but she has a lot of respect for good leaders and real experts. So please do welcome Teri to the panel.
Thank you.
All right, so with our panel full in place, we go over to first questions. As you know, Ada Lovelace is an international celebration of the achievements of women, and I think also of men in science, technology, engineering, and math. And I think for Bloomington, we also decided to add an A into STEAM. And so STEAM then ultimately stands for science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. I think we want all of that in Bloomington and beyond. And I think it's wonderful also to see how much Ada Lovelace inspired many of us. And so my first question to the panelists is, which person or invention has inspired you, and maybe also others, to engage in STEAM activities? And these could be local heroes and pioneers or global heroes and pioneers, because oftentimes it's quite useful to think globally and act locally. So again, the question is, which person or invention has inspired you to get and others to engage in STEAM activities? Who wants to go first?
Well, I'm
I like
happy to
Thailand.
start. Oh,
Go ahead.
go ahead, Bryony, go ahead.
I think for ourselves, it really is the onset of the internet. Just the fact that we're able to connect with so many people at so many levels has been transformative. My husband and I are both from Mexico City, and we have moved to Atlanta, to Chicago, to New York, to Austin, to Bloomington. We keep moving, but our job doesn't change because of this ability to stay connected and relevant no matter where we are. And it doesn't matter if what we're doing is written content or actual physical pieces that we send through the mail. It all comes to life through the internet.
Well, I'll go next. I actually when I was thinking about this question and thinking particularly about younger people, I couldn't help but reflect on my 3.5-year-old grandson, who took one look at the SpaceX launch, the various launches that have been going up in the past several months, and has fallen utterly in love with rocketry. So I have to kind of give the nod to, I suppose, to Elon Musk, but but to space exploration, to space science. And I remember, as probably some of us do, the very first space launches. It was actually why my father ever bought a television, was because so we could watch. I think originally the Mercury launches go up all in black and white, little tiny set. And it was just, it still fascinates me to this day. And today we have so many more female astronomers. In fact, I made a big point when I'm with my grandson to show him pictures of Mae Jemison and all the other women, especially Mae, because she's a woman of color and she's even more unusual. And I will just give a little shout out, of course, to our latest Nobelist in physics, an astronomer, Andrea Gaze. Again, lots of opportunities for women in astrophysics, astronomy, many other scientific fields that weren't there for, back in the days of the Mercury program, but are now.
And I think it's very important to have good role models. And so that's also one reason why I wanted to ask you, what does inspire you and what do you think is inspiring for others? Anyone else wants to add to this?
Yeah, I think on taking up on the Nobel route too, Emanuela Carpentier and Jennifer Doudna for their work with CRISPR-Cas9. And as somebody who's been impacted and really a beneficiary of the biotech revolution that was started with the Coin-Boyer innovations in DNA, this is really on the same par, and I think will be revolutionary. And again, two women scientists who are amazing role models, and not only having such a tremendous impact on healthcare and public health, but also speaking eloquently about our policy responsibilities and the decisions that are made when you have a tool that's this powerful for gene editing in order to address disease. So that's one that I'm excited about and thinking about a lot.
Very good comment. So next question then, how do you think can we engage more children and adults, not just children, but also everyone really, in STEAM over the coming 2 years? And of course, those coming 2 years will still be impacted by the pandemic that is raging around this planet. Hopefully not in the way that it is right now, but I think we will still have some aftermath to deal with. So again, how do you think can we engage more children online and offline in STEAM activities?
I'll start with this one. So I work a lot with, as you mentioned in my bio, the Black Women in Tech Student Alliance at IU. And one thing that I'm particularly proud of that group for doing is engaging with the younger children, and just a couple of things that we do. One, we rewrite the narratives that are in the textbooks, right? And so we highlight different women of color, underrepresented people that are in STEAM, but then also just giving students the chance to experience things. So I know I like to take my nieces and nephews to Wonder Lab, right? That's not something that is, I didn't have access to a Wonder Lab when I was younger. And so just getting them, obviously not during COVID, but getting them hands-on experience where they can start to see themselves not as one of many or one of few, but actually to start to see themselves in these different areas. So I would say exposing them and then also just rewriting the narratives.
And I'm so glad you mentioned our local Wonder Lab. I think they are doing a heroic job and really getting everybody to fall in love yet again with science.
Yeah. And have fun.
I think that for the next 2 years, the main thing is to unplug the kids and actually just give them a toilet paper roll and, spark questions and curiosity in them and teach them to problem solve. Because what I'm noticing is that everything is pre-solved online. Everything is right now is in a way solved by the adults around them. How to homeschool, how to do this, how to do all of their school assignments. And all of a sudden, they are no longer problem solving and facing these challenges on their own. So I think primarily is plucking them away from all of this technology and all of these solutions that are ready made for them, and actually just teaching them to think independently and challenge themselves with curiosity.
I agree. I think that those are essential. I actually think there's that it's important to teach entrepreneurship, and I mean that in the broadest sense possible, and not just talking about starting up businesses that are going to bring in a lot of money, but engaging in social entrepreneurship. The act of having an idea and being able to encapsulate it in a way that inspires other people to join in. And I think the earlier we can get kids thinking creatively of how to bring in different elements into an idea to make it a reality, I think that's going to make a huge difference in how we do solve problems going forward. And it's, very much, I think, is right in the area of STEAM, because when you think about the A in particular, also the other letters, it's really a lot about design, but also about how you express that design and how you get people to be interested in it.
And I agree. And I think a lot of that runs through this is just making inquiry a normal part of day-to-day life, just questioning things and trying to understand them. But role models like the one you were talking about are so important. And as we think more and more about evidence-based decision making and so forth, there are more and more studies that show that role models are absolutely critical to encouraging and showing how interesting and rewarding being involved in STEM and now STEAM can be. And not just this is what the science is about, or the technology is about, or the art is about, but this is me, and this is my day-to-day life, and this is this is what it's about. And you don't have to be a particular kind of person to do this kind of work. I'm an ordinary person who lives in an ordinary house, and I have children and pets, but I also love my science, art, so forth. I think that makes just such a huge difference.
And I think it's also the case that we have to deal with more and more interdisciplinarity, and we oftentimes have to involve people from government, industry, and academia in order to solve some of the major challenges that we are all facing on this planet. So I think it's very important to have good communication skills, good team skills, and I think maybe that's also what's taught very effectively in the Kelly School at IU, namely how to do entrepreneurship in a very systematic and sophisticated manner. And I think many other schools can really use that as a good example of how to train the next generation of engineers and others and designers and architects that then can communicate their visions, their dreams, their hopes to a much larger audience, and then make their dreams come true and their projects come true. I think that's a very, very important skill to have. So I'm going to have one more question, and then there might be also questions from the audience. As you all know, COVID-19 has disrupted lives and societies worldwide. It has exposed strengths and weaknesses in leadership and institutions and individuals. And I wanted to see what our panelists think during this pandemic time. What do they wish for that they would love to see true? So what kind of wish do they most have and would they most like to see come true in this very unusual time we all live in?
Besides a vaccine tomorrow.
Well, that's maybe number one.
Which I don't think we're going to get.
And then you have to produce quite a number of vaccines and distribute them in a very, very organized manner. I think there are many schemes of how to do this best and in an ethical way, and also in a way that it benefits all of us, not just the rich and famous. But besides that, what else would you like to see come through?
Right. Well, I will just throw out something that's been, I think, we've become acutely aware of among many, many other things is the lack of ubiquitous broadband and broadband penetration into areas. Just thinking of the state of Indiana that are underserved, and now that children are home, trying to learn from home, the socioeconomic disparities that already exist are just being made much more acute And I totally agree with you, Bryony, that we want to unplug our kids. On the other, unfortunately, they have to be plugged in right now. I very much hope that this time coming out of the pandemic, it sparks a sea change in our attitudes about the need to make sure that we can level the playing field, that particular playing field, for communities all across our state and beyond.
And I like to go after Laurie because you lead perfectly into what I would suggest. The way that I've been thinking about this entire COVID experience is that it's disrupted privilege for a lot of people. So people who had the freedom to just be able to travel and hang out with friends, or make new investments or try new things, like COVID put us all at home. Some of us probably had never been kind of restricted in that way. So what I'm hoping is that we take this disruption of privilege and that we really use it going forward. Like, what did we learn from this? What can we bring with us that we were too scared to explore before? Can we abandon this idea that, well, if it isn't broke, we don't fix it? For example, many places felt like, well, you have to work a 9 to 5 or a 40-hour work week in order to be productive. And then people started getting this, I guess you shouldn't really say COVID gave us freedom, but this alternative to be able to work remotely and from home. And we see that productivity has increased in many ways, right? So what are things that we've been holding on to so closely as a nation that we thought, because it's always been done this way, it has to stay this way? What can we do different? What did we learn from COVID? And I love that Laurie mentioned this conversation around access, because it's not just access to tech, right? But it's access to all different types of resources. And it really brings up a diversity conversation. Do all students need to be in the classroom to learn, right? Do all students need to take standardized tests to be admitted to universities? So there are just so many things that COVID has brought about that I hope that we hold on to the innovation and the difference that we've been able to experience, the good things, right? Moving forward, and hopefully this grants a new freedom to people.
I think one of the main things, I mean, there are many things I wish for, obviously, but is that this works as a wake-up call for our education system, especially K-12, and the pressure we have put on it as a society to solve so many problems that should not be solved by the teachers and the staff and the administrators. It should fall on the government and other areas of any city or town versus the school. And also in that process, acknowledge the mental health of all of these students who have been under a lot of pressure the last decade, 15 years. As technology advances, we put more and more and more on their plates, and we don't let their brains actually take a breather and just, look out the window and make connections in that brain that are going to lead to new ideas, to innovation, because we're always asking for more and more and more. So allowing these kids to actually just breathe and, pay attention to their mental health, moving on from COVID and how they're going to come on the other side of this, because that is something that, nobody in this generation has experienced, and we don't know what the aftermath is going to be.
Yeah, I agree. And I think my wish is that as individuals and as a society, we increase our respect and respect evidence-based learning, inquiry, and decision-making. And we have excellent research that we're hearing more and more about, that diverse teams with inclusive leadership outperform their less diverse counterparts and peers. We are learning, if we're paying attention to the evidence, that immigration is good for our economy. It is the foundation for diverse teams and success. We are learning, when we pay attention to the evidence, that providing meaningful access to healthcare, education, employment is the most effective way to reduce the number of women who die in childbirth. And we are in the top 3 in Indiana for childbirth-related deaths. And that climate change is real. There are 18 scientific associations that are in consensus, and in science, we don't always have this level of consensus. So my wish is that as individuals in a society, we respect evidence and evidence-based learning as we make our decisions for what's best for our families and our communities.
Amen.
Thank you all so very, very much for these great answers to this important question. I see quite a number of questions from the audience, and I think Jane Martin is going to moderate here. Jane, over to you.
And also to Katy, what is the biggest impact a mentor has had on your lives or your careers? And maybe Nichelle, can we start with you?
Yes, I would love to start with that question, partially because one of my mentors is on this call. So I'm going to give a nod to Laurie. One thing that has happened, one thing that has been impactful for me is that they acknowledge that I'm a Black woman who will have different challenges, and they were okay with talking to me candidly about how to navigate those opportunities, which I think is really important. They never talked about it from like a hole that I could never crawl out of, but more so something that I needed to be aware of. So I've always appreciated the candor of a mentor, especially in Laurie. I know that there were times where I could call her and say, hey, take off your friend hat. I need you to be a mentor right now. How do I navigate this particular situation? And she was always okay with being able to speak to me as a woman and then me also as an underrepresented woman. But the other thing that I appreciate is that a number of my mentors have given me access to opportunities that I wouldn't have been able to explore myself. And so knowing that they weren't gatekeepers of wonderful opportunities, that they were more so willing to bring me along, I think is super important and helpful. And so I would encourage all mentors to do that, not necessarily being a gatekeeper of information, but bring your mentees along with you. Invite them to meetings or events or opportunities where they can start to see themselves in these different positions.
Anyone else?
Well, I had a mentor. I've been blessed to have several in my time. People who are really sort of sustained relationships over time, and the one that comes to mind is one who really reinforced to me that I had time, that I didn't have to rush into career decisions right away. That particularly as you're, in my 30s is when I had my children. Being able to navigate being a working mother, and having a mentor who said, it's okay. You're not gonna blow the roof off that project. It's okay, and you've got time. That was, especially at that moment in my life, just it was life changing. So that's an important message. And frankly, I mean, I'm a lot older now. But, I still have time. And I think that's a reminder to all of us that there's still time to do the things that you need to do, that you feel you want to do.
So I'll answer this question slightly differently. And that is, I didn't really have like a strong mentor. I've approached different people for advice throughout my life. But I have noticed that, again, over the last 2 decades or so, young, and in my case, I'm especially focused on graphic designers, but young people are no longer exposed to meetings with their bosses as much as we used to. Going to a client and saying, okay, here's 5 logo ideas. Let's talk about the new brand that you're developing, and this is what we have. That kind of thing. So we have created events that have become mentoring events in a way. Our first round conference is attending a whole day of 12 presentations of experienced graphic designers from all paths of life, small firms, large firms, sharing how they go about that first meeting, presenting all of their concepts and ideas to a client. And so people get a full day of just all of the different methodologies, all of the different approaches, and leave that and with the option of approaching any of these speakers afterwards for more information, because all of the speakers are local and most of the attendees are local. So it's a way of creating that connection that is no longer in the day-to-day, because everybody's so busy. It's like, okay, I'm going to go present to this client and you're on to the next project and you are on this and this and that. And we don't sit and actually just show how things are done anymore.
Teri, I'm going to start with you on this next question. If you're a person who doesn't particularly like or get science or math or technology, how can we, let's say, who aren't, incorporate the ideals and the principles into our lives and our careers?
That's a big question. I think there are a group of very talented writers that, and several publications which feature like the best of science writing each year. And so if it's really the science and technology aspects, which can be absolutely daunting. I mean, my background's more in life sciences and I'm on a steep learning curve in the software area, and other folks are vice versa. But one of the things I've always really appreciated is kind of the best of science writing, and it's science writing that is geared towards a layperson, a non-scientist. And and usually what it incorporates is the value of inquiry, the value of asking questions and how to ask questions, the value of understanding when decisions are being made based on evidence instead of the strategy of exploiting ignorance. Just that type of thing. I wish you've got me thinking I'm going to go find some specific examples and then try to look forward to a chance to use them. So,
well, I've got one for you. How about stage time?
Oh, there you go. That's an exciting example. That's one of our portfolio companies, a spin out from the Jacobs School of Music. So tech companies don't always come from the College of Arts and Sciences or from chemistry is in the College of Arts and Sciences. And this is a very talented young woman, an opera singer, who found an unmet need for other artists in how they connected with opportunities, and has launched a company that I think is going to be absolutely, so successful. But the foundation of the company, of course, is having the right software, the right good business principles. But it started with addressing an unmet need in a very important marketplace, and a very difficult marketplace at this time, where you have performing artists who have to continue to create a foundation for their careers at a very difficult time where you're not performing, as we're learning about from Cardinal Stage.
Katy, I have a question. Thank you, Teri. I have a question for you, if you're still with us. Katy. Well, let me throw the question out, and if Katy is available to answer it. There's a question about one of the audience members has a daughter at Georgia Tech, and it's primarily a male organization. This isn't just tech. When I started in the business school, I was the only woman in almost all of my classes. So women have been a minority in some of the harder sciences, even in business, for a long time. But I'm not sure whether this questioner is asking how we can make an environment that's more accommodating to diversity, not just by gender, but also by ethnicity and race. And so how can we begin to make all of our organizations more open and more inclusive? So I'll just throw that out, because I'm not sure Katy is with us.
I think she may be muted, and hopefully she'll jump in. I'll just say very quickly, I was a little, had to just take note of the fact that the example in the question was Georgia Tech. Because the first thing I thought of was the program we have here at IU, the Center of Excellence for Women in Technology, which is seeking to address exactly the issue that the questioner raises in the question. And interestingly, the executive director of CWIT came from Georgia Tech. So one thing to say about this is that I think in every environment where statistically you look around and you may not see a lot of people that perhaps look like you, there are undoubtedly more fellow travelers than you realize. And some of it, I think some of it is seeking out those pockets of support where you can find them. And it may not be in your department, it may not be in your major, your program, it may be somewhere else. And there may very well be programs across the campus that can connect you to disciplines outside your own, where you may be able to find people that you have a more of an identity with, that you can create community with, and give you that sense of belonging somewhere where you sometimes don't feel like you do.
Katy?
Thank you for that great question. I think Teri had to go off because only 5 speakers can be together in this panel right now.
Oh.
So just to answer this quickly, and then Teri can come back on. In the Intelligent Systems Engineering department here at Indiana University, we are hoping to have many more female faculty members, many more students, many more postdocs and PhD students. And I think that will create a very different atmosphere. Until then, I think Laurie is perfectly right. There are actually quite a number of engineers on IU's campus because given that IU for almost 200 years didn't have engineering, all the other sciences had to create their own engineering clusters because they all needed to build new devices so that they could, for the very first time in their lives, see things with their own eyes, which couldn't be seeable without these new instruments. And so it's fascinating for me to see how engineering really interconnects to so many other departments. And then just to chime into what Laurie just said, you can always create your own networks at IU and beyond, and ultimately also internationally. And I know this is hard during a pandemic time when you can't travel, but I think you can do many things now that were not possible before. You can connect to experts that might actually like to hear from you. You can invite speakers from around the globe that otherwise might not have been able to come here in person. And so I think there are possibilities that now exist, which didn't exist before. So please do reach out to any of us, I think, to find your group of women and men that you want to collaborate with. And I think it's always good to have some heroes, but also good to have friends and colleagues with whom to work very closely. Thank you.
Katy, before you leave, this might be a really good time to award our Pioneer in STEAM for 2020. You are the recipient of that award last year, and I think you have a few things to say in making the award this year.
Thank you so much, Jane, for giving me the opportunity to do this amazing award, kind of giving it on to the next person in line. And it is truly my distinct pleasure to virtually present you this year's Ada Lovelace Pioneer in STEAM awardee. The awardee is Laurie Burns McRobbie, and I think we all should have a set of applause for our awardee. So if you could join me, everybody, I think you might not hear this all, but I'm very glad it is Laurie, because just like Ada, Laurie is much more than just an IT expert and programmer. And being an IT expert and programmer is not easy, so I should put quotation marks around it just. And very practically, Laurie empowers many women and many others in IT. It's not just women she empowers Concretely, Laurie has helped fund the Service IT Service Learning Clinic, and she played a very, very crucial role in the establishment of the IU Center of Excellence for Women in Technology, CWIT, that many of us benefit almost daily from. Laurie also, as you know, she serves on numerous boards, both locally and nationally, including the Community Foundation of Bloomington and Monroe County, the Riley Children's Foundation, and she also serves as the president of the board of directors for the Indiana Conference for Women. Bloomington is a town of makers and innovators. Many of these makers are artists. In July of 2017, Laurie was appointed by Governor Eric Holcomb to the Indiana Arts Commission. So she's very active in this area as well. So she's a true Renaissance lady, if you wish, combining the arts and the technologies. So this engineering being established at IU, now more and more makers in Bloomington are also engineers and artists at the same time. So she's a great role model to have. My personal congratulations go to you, Laurie, and everybody, please join us all for a round of applause yet again. Thank you all.
Thank you, Katy. Laurie, I will get this to your office. It's my pleasure now to invite all of you to come to the Dimension Mill, to the event space in the lower level between 2 and 6 today to view the macroscopes, the data visualizations that have been produced by Katy and her team. There's 10 of them in the event space. We'll have the doors open. You can come in and just walk around. Be sure to wear a mask. We'll only allow 30 in at a time. And then one of Katy's colleagues, Liesl Record, is going to do a short overview at 5 p.m. this evening. So we invite you to come. Now I'd love to just honor all of our panelists, that you are an extraordinary group of women. You inspire us today and every day. We're honored to have you on this panel. We benefit from your wisdom. And thank you for your time and effort to raise up the A in STEAM, because I'm of a mind that every tool, every medical discovery, every leap in social justice began in someone's imagination. So that A in STEAM is how we are going to solve the Gordian knot, complex problems of our age with elegant solutions that come from diverse thinking and collaboration, which is primarily in the female culture. So I think all of us women have a lot to contribute to move the world forward. And you all, you 5, Teri, I'm sorry you're not visible on the screen, but I thank each and every one of you, and for helping to make this a really wonderful virtual Ada Day. Thank you. I also want to thank Cardinal Stage, who has been so instrumental in organizing this, getting the word out, working social media, publicizing it, and providing the technology backdrop. So thank you, Cardinal Stage. And thank you all in the audience for being here.
And we should also all thank
pleasure.
Jane Martin. Thank you so much, Jane, for bringing us all together.
Yes, yeah, thanks to you, Jane. Speaking of great ideas that began in someone's imagination, I think this one started in Jane's. So she really is the progenitor of this celebration of Ada Lovelace and all that she stood for and continues to mean to us today. Thank you, Jane.
You're welcome. I stole it from Cardinal Stage because they were putting on Ada and the Engine. And that got preempted by COVID. but it's coming. We'll manage to make it happen with Kate and Gabe and Cassie's help. Anyway, thank you all.
Yeah. Thank you, Cardinal Stage.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.